Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We are so excited to have you all joining us on this Thursday. I hope your weeks have been going okay so far. If you are new to being on an Acumen webinar, I want to go over our platform real quick. And tell you a little bit about where you can join in and ask questions. So if you go over to the right side of your screen, you will see a chat tab. Feel free to chat in that tab. If you have any comments to any of the suggestions that we make or any of the recommendations that we share, feel free to comment on those. And then there is a questions tab as well, where we definitely encourage you to ask questions along the way. We have a series of 5 categories that we'll be going over that was featured in the information tab when you registered for the webinar. So we'll be going off of that, but feel free to ask any questions along the way and chat in the chat feature. And definitely feel free to chat if you're having issues connecting or trying to figure something out, and we will be happy to help. I am going to turn it over to our CEO, Sonny Clark. He is going to introduce the rest of the team and tell you about Acumen.
Hey, thanks, Kaylin. Hey, like Kaylin said, I'm Sonny Clark, CEO of Acumen, and we've got Keith Mounty is a business partner, and he is joining us. He's our COO, but he's also very technical. One thing about our company is everybody is pretty technical, except for the back office people. But Keith handles all the operations, helps with projects, pre-sales, etc. James Farley is here joining us, and he's in business development. And Brent Peden runs our NOC, our Network Operations Center, and helps with reactive and monitoring our clients' networks. In Acumen Technology, we are an IT service provider, also called a managed service provider. We partner with companies to help them manage their IT. We're outsourced IT, basically. And yeah, we have been working remote since March. And, you know, it was funny, a lot of companies have been working remote, and we keep thinking, oh, I'm just going to get by because 2 more weeks will be in the office and 2 more weeks. And here we are 6 months later, and we're still working remote. And so we thought we get questions from our clients and our prospects who are also working remote. And they're kind of, a lot of people have that same thought, like, oh, in 2 more weeks, I'll be back in the office, so I don't need to do much. And I think we realized that this isn't going on a lot longer than 2 more weeks. Probably going to be months, if not another year, of some type of work remote. So we just want to share some ideas on what we've done to make it easier to work remote, to stay secure, be effective, to be comfortable working remote. Because now that we know it's not just 2 more weeks, but it could be 2 more months or 6 more months to make this kind of that new normal we keep hearing about. So we got some questions already that we received. We're going to go over those, plus again, just share ideas that we've done ourselves that helps us work remote. So with that, Kaylin, I'm going to get to Kaylin so she can moderate this discussion.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonny. Yeah, just going off of what Sonny said, not me personally, I'm definitely one of those back office people that Sonny just described that is not as technical, but these guys definitely have a lot of great knowledge and tips to share. They're always talking about how family members and friends are reaching out to them to ask them questions about their work from home setup. Like Sonny said, we have our clients asking us these things. So we just thought we would take some time to share these tips and tricks that we've learned and we use to just make our day-to-day lives easier while we're working remote. So the first one I want to go over is our setup. You can see we're all at home right now. We all have different backgrounds, different setups, but we have found different things to make that a little easier. So Brent, I want to start with you. What is some equipment that you have right now with your work from home setup that you feel like is making it easier for you while you're remote?
Thank you. I think the most obvious thing, and I'm sure a lot of people would say this, is multiple monitors. I was very used to using my 2 monitors at work plus my laptop screen. And at home, I've only ever had 2 monitors because I didn't, it was a desktop computer. I didn't have the laptop component. So I did have to add another monitor to my setup, which required me to kind of reconfigure it with the mounts and stuff like that. So, I have a dual arm or a dual monitor mount for my desk, and then I have one mounted behind me on the wall. But there's tons of, cheap mount situations that you can do for your monitors, so that's not a big deal. And monitors are pretty cheap these days. You don't have to get anything incredibly fancy to to get you some additional real estate. And then I would say probably for me as well, as far as being on camera all the time, I'm also a hobbyist streamer. So I was already kind of looking at lighting anyways, but I have a pretty bright LED that bounces against the back wall that's behind my computer and then bounces back on me to kind of, soften the light a little bit. But lighting is definitely important. And a lot of people don't think about it either, is the lighting behind, which helps kind of separate the background from the foreground a little bit. So I went with these colored lights and, just break it up a little bit and keep it creative. But I think those are two good starting points, as well as a good webcam, obviously. But then again, as long as someone can see you, that's a lot better than just a phone call. So it doesn't have to be incredibly fancy. And those are kind of hard to find still. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned a great one, lighting. Sonny, I know you have a ring light, correct, with your setup. Could you actually just show that to everybody and explain what that does for you?
So just to what, you can see my office is all painted brown. So without enough lights, it's kind of dark in here. And I've opened the curtains and it's way too much light and everything's kind of whited out. So I've got a ring light. I think it's like $40 on Amazon, and I'm just using it for backlight. I can show you guys. It's one of these lights. It's nothing fancy, but it gives it makes the room not as dark. And it's actually USB, and you can see when it's off, everything's kind of really dark behind me. You turn it on, it kind of lights it up. And again, it's really inexpensive, readily available. And just, I don't know, I'm on Teams calls and video calls, I'd say 3/4 of my day. So you want to, look as real as possible and be almost as in person as possible. So you want a good environment if you're doing that. Really inexpensive. And just, again, get the lighting. It's not much, and it's available. So that's helped us a lot.
Awesome. And then I know it looks like James, Keith, and I have similar headsets on. These are ones that we gave to all Acumen employees. James or Keith, could you talk a little bit about our headsets and the importance of just having a good headset and what it can do to improve when you're conducting video calls?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you'll notice between the difference between Keith and I, he likes the single ear. I've got I worked for Dell years and years ago in a call center environment, and sort of gained an affinity for having the double ear kind, because it sort of blocks out some of the sound. And then for me, it's important to have a noise canceling microphone. Especially the kids are finally, I have 3 young kids, they're all back in school now. But for most of the summer and for the end of last school year, I had a combination of barking dogs and disruptive children, and somebody's watching kiddie shows on Netflix in the background, and all anything and everything you could imagine disruptive going on. And so the noise canceling microphone helped to improve that. And I think that's indicative too of my setup here. I'm in the middle of my living room, which is where our family gaming computer is, and which is not ideal, but it helps me to monitor my kids' computer usage, and just so happens to be the best place to sit and do these sorts of things also.
Awesome. Keith, anything to add?
No, definitely important though. I was just on a conference call yesterday where there was a ton of feedback. Of course, we all have to get used to muting ourselves when we're on those big conference calls, but we're all going to forget from time to time. And just when you're on a headset, it just makes it a lot better experience for everybody where you're not getting that feedback. So yeah, I like the over ear one. I feel like my head's being clamped with those over the 2 ear ones. So anyway, I go with this style, but they're all available. They are hard to find right now. When you look on Amazon, there's just a bunch of generic brands, and it's something that it's nice to try to find a Logitech or some other Plantronics or some other name brand like that for this equipment. Definitely hard to find though, but it makes a difference with the quality with the mic especially.
And you brought up something that's great, muting yourself in a big conference call when you're not talking. So that's something that we've definitely found is important, that I do think we all forget to do that. If you're on a big call and you're not muted, you often can contribute unnecessary sound to a conversation that's happening. So I know that's small, but it's something to keep in mind. My headset has a super convenient mute button on the cord. So if if I'm on a different platform, so right now we're hosting this webinar on Livestorm and I can't find where my mute button is, I have that easily available on the cord of my headset, which definitely comes in handy.
Well, I was
yeah,
say
go
to
ahead,
Keith's
Sonny.
point, the Logitech being some of these are hard to find. I have this one called Aftershocks. It's a running Bluetooth headset, and I just connected to Bluetooth, and I think it was under $100. They're readily available. So sometimes you can make something else work that's not actually made for this. So I'm using this headset. It's Bluetooth. It's easy. And then I'm using a separate mic because I did find my mic was not the best mic, and because I'm on the calls all day long, I went and got this the Blue Yeti mic. It's a bigger investment, but the sound quality is great, and it's just it's a good combination to have a headset and a mic, and it does help because if you use your monitors or speakers, like Keith said, you'll get that feedback or that echo. People will hear themselves. So definitely having a headset, if you have an external mic, if it's not the same unit, it can't be noise canceling. So you definitely want to wear a headset when you're doing that.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a great point I think a lot of us have some of this equipment lying around that we use for other things. So just trying to utilize what you already have, especially when there are items that are in high demand right now. Okay, great. Thanks, guys, for just sharing some different pieces of equipment you have with your setups. I want to move on to one I labeled the balancing act when we were putting together this webinar. Everybody has different scenarios while they're at home right now. Some have kids at home still right now doing school virtually. Some are back in school, pets, spouses trying to share workspaces. It is definitely hard to balance all of those things and stay focused when you're working remote. And Brent, I'm going to turn it back over to you again. I know you had your kiddos at home for a while you were working remote. Could you talk a little bit on that about just how you manage that and some things that you learned to, utilize your time well and still be able to focus on everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So my big thing was my whole setup was kind of in the living room for the most part. It was like on the side of the apartment that I'm in, and so I've got kids running behind me, I've got the wife running behind me, and that was never an issue before because on the odd and end day that I would work from home, usually they're at school and my wife is at work and all that good stuff. Well, now everybody's home, and so I had to. What I did personally is, especially with the wife working from home as well, she was right behind me. Our phone calls were kind of interacting with each other because she does customer service as well. So I basically picked up my entire setup and moved it into the bedroom. And I actually put it, it's as funny as it sounds, I put it in my closet and used half of my closet for a closet and the other half for an actual workspace. And it works really well when you have a fairly large closet anyways. So between that and just as far as, balancing the other things, because it does get a little bit monotonous working from home, I do try to, if I don't have something already planned as far as meetings or a call, I try to set regular intervals for me to get up, walk around. If my kids do happen to be home, I will go check on them, make sure their virtual classes are going good, making sure they're not having technical issues, because not only am I doing technical support for my job, I'm also trying to make sure that their technology is working correctly. So yeah, and that's pretty much the big two things is setting up some type of safe space for yourself, some type of private workspace where you're not getting interrupted on the regular anyways, at least as controllable as you can get it. And then, setting that regular interval of I'm going to get up, whether I need to or not, I'm going to get up, go walk around, get some fresh air, whatever. And it just kind of helps break it up. And it keeps me anyways more productive.
Yeah. Awesome. James, I know you had kiddos at home for a while and still do at times. Could you touch on that as well?
Yeah, I mentioned it a second ago, and I think other than your workspace and those things like Brent's talking about, I know that one of the things that I struggled with as well was simply my internet connection. It's especially on the days, and now the kids are back at school, but when they were doing the school from home thing, I had 3 kids simultaneously doing Zoom calls on their little Chromebooks. Oftentimes, as they're taking breaks throughout the day, by the time I get off to go check on them, there's a couple of TVs streaming 4K cartoons, and maybe the PlayStation and the gaming computer are downloading Fortnite updates, and so I had to upgrade my internet connection. It wasn't a big deal. Comcast had to send some new equipment, so I've got a gig connection now, but it also had to increase my limit for the total amount of download over a monthly period of time, and it's pretty phenomenal that that's available to us now. And yeah, I sympathize with those that maybe live in more rural areas and don't have that available to them.
Yeah. Keith, Sunny, anything to add on that front?
That was pretty fun. I thought you were going a different direction there with saying your kids were, watching 4K videos instead of doing school. So you upgrade your internet connection. Well, my wife and I, it's funny. We ended up realizing with all the working from home, we can't really share a desk. And but we realized we had this big desk before, and we actually got some different furniture. I've got a pretty small desk. I mean, it's maybe 3.5 feet wide. I mean, it's a tiny little desk, but we got two little matching ones and a little file cabinet between us. And because we realized we don't really need papers and stuff. And if you have a larger desk, then you do just end up leaving mail and junk laying about. We really don't need any of that. My entire desk consists of 2 monitors. It's got a nice keyboard drawer underneath, so it's nice and compact. I don't need the space up on the desk for the keyboard. And I actually put the computer up underneath the desk and mounted it under there. So I've got a really clean little setup. And we were able to fit in 2 setups. So we each have our own little space. And it's funny, though, we still discovered, though, we can't both be in here at the same time. I get run off on Mondays when my wife works from home because we are both, on the phone right next to each other, kind of, Brent, like what you were saying. It's difficult. But at least we have our own spaces that we're not messing with and changing things around. So that really helped. And then this kind of relates more to the setup topic. But
Yeah.
luckily, I figured this out before the pandemic hit. But and it's funny, I realize this is a super first world silly problem, but I actually had some Wi-Fi coverage issues, which I think a lot of people can relate to. So and even being a computer guy, I didn't think about this at first. I went out, I got another wireless access point and installed it, had 2 Linksys access points. But I realized just getting 2 standalone access points, I was still having coverage issues. And I know this kind of gets a little technical, but what I realized is happening is when it's 2 standalone access points, your computer doesn't know to jump over to the best one. It'll hang on to the one as long as possible, even when the connection's bad. And it's only when it completely drops will it reconnect to the closest one. So I went out and I got one of these kits. And so I advise anyone that's having coverage issues at home, maybe it's because you put that office in some new room of the house or some corner of the house or a closet where you didn't worry about it before. And that's what happened with us. We've got this new office in a corner of the house that we didn't really use before. So anyway, there's these kits where you get like 3 access points in a kit that are designed to work together. They're called mesh systems, and it works so much better. Google's got a Google Nest Wi-Fi kit. Linksys has a kit with 3, and then you'll have plenty of coverage, and it works so much better.
And I think the new Comcast, there's an option where they give you 3 of those too, where they actually have it built into their router.
Oh yeah, makes it easy.
Kind of cool. Yeah. When it comes to, I guess for me, from working from home, at first I did try just using the setup I had, which was fine because I'd do it at night, but it was usually for an hour or so, and it was fine. But when I started working from home all day, I was having just sitting down. I'm used to having a stand-up desk at work, and sitting down all day wasn't good or healthy for me. So I actually just brought a second desk in, and I can stand up again. I can go from sitting and standing. And for me, it was just getting comfortable like I was at work, because I am at work now, but it's at home instead of the office. So it was getting that same environment set up just the way I had at the office, because I had most of us have our office set up to where we're comfortable, where we can work there 8 to 10 hours a day. And it was getting that home environment set up the exact same way, because how you worked at home before might have just been 30 minutes, an hour a night. But now that you're doing it all day long, it is different. It needs to be, like Brent said, bring the two monitors home if you had 2 monitors, or if you had 3 monitors, or whatever the setup was. Get as close to that setup as possible as you can, as makes sense.
Yeah. I have a similar situation to Keith. My husband's in grad school right now, and we have one enclosed office in the house. And so we discussed the day before, hey, who needs the closed-in office for the day? Whoever has the most video calls, if he has class where he needs to be on the video call paying attention. So we kind of schedule out who gets the office for what times, and then the other one we have a different, modified setup in the kitchen. So yeah, I feel like everybody's making it work right now and just trying to balance everything out. All right, moving on to security. We talked about this in one of our previous webinars. I feel like when the pandemic first started, working securely at home is super important. And I think it's something that can kind of be put on the back burner at times, but we definitely want to touch on that. Keith and Brent, I definitely want to hear tips from both of you guys on how to maintain security while at home, things to be thinking about, practical things that everybody can do when they're working at home. So Keith, I'll turn it over to you first, and just would love to hear your advice and what you have to say on that.
First of all, I think the most important thing that can help keep the kids off the computer. I'm just getting a toddler who's getting into the age where he can begin to do some stuff, and I got him a little tablet because I definitely want to foster learning, how to do that kind of stuff, but not on a computer where he can get into so much more trouble and who knows what he'll click on. So anyway, so tablets are good devices for the younger kids. They can tend to be a little bit more secure just because there's not as much malware out there for those platforms. They're a little bit more limited. So he's got a little Amazon Fire tablet that he can't get in too much trouble and nice and locked down. So then on the computer, keeping the antivirus up to date, the patches up to date, keeping that Windows firewall enabled, all of those things. Windows has come a long way with a lot more good built-in tools. There's that little security center that you can go into, and it'll tell you, whether you've got all the different boxes checked. So that's something that you can check on. And then hopefully your workplace is doing some things to complement those security controls to ensure that stuff that you shouldn't be downloading can't be downloaded at home, or can't get in from unsecure computers, things like that. So we have a lot of things that are accessible over the web at our workplace, but then VPN access with two-factor authentication and all that. Gosh, that's a big one too. Whenever that's the single biggest thing I think. With people working from home, if you think about if the only thing between you and a system is just a username and a password, that's a problem. If it's accessible from anywhere, there should be that second factor of authentication. And I know that's something that I'm not sure if our audience is more of the end users or the people who can control that. That's really something your workplace has to put in place. But anyway, for us, if we can get to it from home, it's going to be two-factor authentication. So that's an important one.
Awesome. Brent, anything to add to that?
Mainly just piggybacking, because I was going to say updates, definitely, and because that's kind of my bread and butter a lot of the time, anyways, being the NOC manager. It's a lot of the same things that we harp on, even when you're working from the office, except it's tenfold when you're at home, because there's so many different ways to get taken advantage of to pull down malicious content, especially if you're using your own equipment, which a lot of people are. I use my own desktop to do a lot of the work things, and you have to kind of think about, okay, what security do I have at work that I don't necessarily have at home? A lot of times you don't have the same firewall set up, all the web filtering and things like that are usually protecting you. You just don't think about it because it's there, it's doing its job. Well, you don't usually have that at home. It's not as strict, so you have to be careful there. Two-factor everything. Even my personal stuff, I try to put two-factor on absolutely everything. Banking, all that sort of stuff. You should just kind of like live and breathe that at this point, I feel like. And, as far as for me with my kids, I had to, for virtual learning, they were at the age where I had to buy them their own laptops when all this dropped. And, the schools were like, hey, we're going to do virtual learning for this first semester, if not longer. So, I had to kind of think like a business in some ways, where I have their computers locked down. They're just standard users on those laptops. They can't install anything. They can't change anything without using my admin credentials. So if you are managing your kids like that, I definitely recommend putting in some sort of security controls in there so that you can kind of keep tabs on what they're doing. It's nice because Windows has a lot of parental controls these days, and it will even, if they go to a malicious website or something like that, I'll literally get a notification in the bottom of my Windows that will say, hey, Chloe or whoever tried to go to this page. Is that okay? Do you want that to happen? Or it'll just block it altogether. So it's, Microsoft has gone a long ways at putting these security and controls in the system and bake them in. And they're very easy to use as well. So.
Awesome. And we actually just got a question in. The question reads, we are split between work PC and personal computers connecting to our work environment from home. Is a VPN enough? Does somebody want to jump in on an answer for that?
I'll start it, but then I'll probably let Keith fill in the gaps. I think
Awesome.
a VPN is absolutely, VPN, SSL VPN, some way of connecting securely. Don't open a port up. We have run across people who just open ports up to the internet thinking that's safe, and it's not. But when you do a VPN, you also need to make sure that whatever's connecting, since that device is now on your network, it needs to be what Brent was saying. It needs to make sure it has the same type of security that your work computers have, because that device is now on your network. It needs to have up-to-date antivirus and threat protection, et cetera. So I'm not sure what else, Keith, you probably add to that.
The way the VPN is set up matters a lot. I mean, so first of all, two-factor for the VPN. VPN itself isn't the silver bullet. Is the important thing, I think. Using two-factor with the VPN. And then the firewall rules, where you're not just on the network, just like another device. When you VPN in, hopefully being put on a segmented subnet with firewall rules, still segmenting what can these VPN connected users actually connect to. So you can control that to say maybe all you want them to be able to do is RDP into your remote desktop server or your Citrix server or something. So you can make it where they're not, just part of the network and they can only do that one thing. To the extent they can get access to other stuff, you have to be very careful. I mean, if you allow them direct access to the file server, hey, a crypto worm could spread through that computer. So definitely something to be very careful about.
Mm-hmm. You guys keep mentioning two-factor. I think a few of you have brought it up. Could you explain what two-factor authentication is, multi-factor authentication is, and maybe give some platforms that you recommend that people can enable that on their accounts with? Keith, do you want to go into that a little bit? I know you've spoke about it on another webinar that we had.
So basically, it's just something else other than a password that you have to use to be able to log onto a system. It can be a text message, a code from a text. It can be a code that's automatically generated on an app on your phone that's constantly rotating every 60 seconds. It can even be a push-based message to approve from your phone, although I'm beginning to get a little bit more skeptical of that because it's a little bit too easy, I think, to accidentally approve that. So I think the most secure ways are using, it's usually a 6-digit code. And people think this is going to be super onerous to deal with that every time. But what they need to remember is you can do a lot of things to say, if you're at the company network, if you're within the company network, you can not require two-factor when you're logged on from a trusted network. And then once you've authenticated on a certain device, you can also say, remember that device for 30, 60, whatever days, so you don't have to re-authenticate. So it doesn't add up to be that much extra work. It's every once in a while you get this extra pop-up at home to log on. And if someone else, though, manages to phish your username and password, they're not just going to be able to log on to everything without that second factor. The scary thing is there's now these two-factor attacks that actually put people onto a phishing website and steal their username and password and their second factor, and then they're in real time logging on behind the scenes. So it's not, again, the complete silver bullet. People really need to be careful about those phishing links and being cognizant that they're clicking on a trusted site. Anyway, so there's a lot to it there, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'll add on to that just a little bit, just to sort of tie into being in the home environment with kids. One thing that made me gave me awareness to something I had not thought about in a long time. For several years, I've spent the $40 a year, whatever it is, for a LastPass Premium as a way to manage my passwords so that they're all very long and very complex. But being at home and being around my kids using their technology all the time, I had always just kind of thought, they're kids. They don't have any passwords that really matter. But being around them more, I realized that they actually have their own little logins for all sorts of things. And LastPass, I think it's like $15 more per year. You get LastPass families, and it allows you as a parent to give them an account that gives them the same capabilities. But then you're also kind of the master, credential holder for all of their stuff to make sure that they're doing them properly.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys, for explaining that a little bit. I just wanted to give people an overview of what that was, since we were mentioning it a lot. Okay. Next thing, moving on to the team. I'm going to pause just real quick and remind everybody again, if you do have questions, please feel free to drop them in the questions tab. I feel like we've already covered a lot so far. So if you need us to expand on anything or have a comment to make, feel free to throw that in there. Moving on to the team. So we have talked a lot about before this webinar, just how we're all staying connected as a team, ways that we use Microsoft Teams. We're a big Microsoft company here, so we've been using Microsoft Teams to chat and stay connected, and that's been a great way for us. We do most of our meetings through Teams, and it's definitely a feature that we have just thoroughly enjoyed. Brent, do you want to share some of your favorite Teams features and some ways that you've used it to stay connected with your coworkers?
Yeah, absolutely. So Teams, just like you said, that's our bread and butter when it comes to intra-office communication, and more so now that they're adding features as far as external meetings and stuff too. But anyways, it's very easy in Teams to see when your coworkers are available, to see what they're up to, because it integrates into the Outlook calendar. And assuming that everyone keeps their calendars up to date, which they should be, by the way, you can very easily just kind of tell where someone's at in their day and whether they're available. But the big thing that I use quite often is, if I get on a call with somebody via Teams, is the screen share functionality, because a lot of times I'm telling someone how to do something. And very easily, while I'm already in the call, I don't have to fire up any other software. I click one button. I can tell it, hey, I want you to share this application, or I want you to share my whole screen, whatever the case may be. And I can show them, very quickly and easily, hey, this is how you do this. This is the button you click on. And now that they can see that process and they can see the steps that I go through, it's very easily for them to reproduce that. And it's so much better than just kind of walking them through it, traditionally over the phone or something like that. So that's my big thing that I use quite often.
James, what about you? What's something in Teams, and it doesn't even have to be in Microsoft Teams, just something that you have found useful in staying connected to your team and your coworkers?
I'll tell you something that I just sort of started doing the last week or so is we start to really adopt Teams from a company-wide standpoint. There's quite a few recurring meetings that we have every single week, like whether it be a management meeting or a particular team meeting or something like that. And inevitably, if these are recurring meetings that involve 5 or 10 people, things like that, from time to time, there's going to be somebody that can't be there or is late or something like that. And it's just so handy to, you can go into the little room, the virtual room there, go to the chat tab and leave a note to somebody and say, hey, I'm going to be 5 minutes late or something like that. And it's just, it's becoming sort of retraining the brain and getting accustomed to how truly simple it is to, have your whole team right at their fingertips, even more easy in some ways than it was when we were all in the same office. Used to you'd maybe go stop by somebody's office and say something. And I think we all miss the personal interaction there, but the technology is certainly making us very efficient.
Yeah. Sunny, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would just say, I think every call, I know you said not specific to Microsoft Teams, but I feel like I used to think I lived in Microsoft Outlook, and now I live in Microsoft Teams. I think every call I make is probably a video call. in teams, just because we're not together, and some people, I mean, like me personally, I'm a people person. I like being around people, so I miss that, just being around people at the office and having the side conversations. So I do make every call. I make usually a video call by default on Teams. I do try to connect with people that way, and I'm also trying to use it more externally too, because a lot of prospects, clients, associates are using the Microsoft Office 365 platform. And you can chat with them through Teams. You can message them. You can do video calls with them. Just as one more way to stay connected with people that you're not seeing, that you probably used to see a lot more often. So just, for me, it's about being connected to that team you used to be connected with, and you happen to be using Microsoft Teams to do that. So
yeah, definitely. Keith, do you have one that you want to share?
I was just thinking about, with all these comments, how far it's going to be about Microsoft Teams again. But you're right, Sonny. I was just thinking, Outlook used to be that kind of ubiquitous, de facto communication standard. And Teams is quickly becoming, before the pandemic, people used I was jumping on a WebEx, jumping on a Zoom, jumping on whatever, a million different things. GoToMeeting was another popular one. And now, Microsoft, in usual fashion, was a little bit slow to the game, but man, they got in gear fast. I mean, 6 months ago, we could only do 4x4 video, and just a lot of things didn't work that well. And now they've got the 7x7 49 party video. We use it for our company meetings, and I put everyone in that gallery view where you can actually just see everyone sitting in a little virtual chair, so you can more easily fit a bunch of people on the screen. Running our presentations through there. So it's amazing. And like Sonny was saying, it's becoming that standard. And I think some people might prefer some other platforms, but there is something to be said for going with that kind of standard. It does feel like I met him now, though. I've had video calls with vendors that I've never seen before. I've spoken to them on the phone for years, but they're out in New York, California, wherever, and I've jumped on a Teams call with them. I wasn't expecting them to join over video, but they're like, yeah, we use Teams too now. And they're, sort of meet that person.
I think that wouldn't have happened before pre-pandemic. You'd have never had a reason to meet with it or see them, right? It's kind of funny.
People have
created an opportunity to make a video call with them.
People have gotten comfortable with it finally. It just hasn't been. It just took this to push us over the edge to say we're going to have to all get comfortable with sticking a webcam in our face, all day long. And it's been a little bit weird, but I can tell you, one thing I wish we had in Livestorm, that Teams had. I love blurring the background. You can do that, then you don't have to worry about cleaning up or who's running by or whatever. So that's a good feature, I'll say. And like everyone else has said, yesterday I was chatting back and forth with someone, and I realized we're like back and forth 4 times trying to figure out something. But it was cool. We were sharing screen snippets, and hey, I'm looking at this, and going back and forth, and I just hit one button, escalate to a call, to get on the phone and chat. And then still, while we're on the call, we shared some more screen snips, and here's this email, and to figure something out together. It's just amazing how well you can collaborate with someone.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great. Thanks, guys. We're going to move on to our last category here, long haul. Just some ways to talk about preparations for the long haul, like Sonny touched on earlier. The amount of time that we'll still be doing this is unknown right now. So just some different investments and things to be thinking about that you can prepare your organization for, you can prepare for yourself as an end user as we head into the long haul. After we finish up this category, we will be doing our raffle for the iPads. So thanks for hanging in there. That's coming up very soon. So to talk about the long haul, this last category, Brent, do you want to start us out on just some thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of it kind of harps on what we've already talked about, really. My big things, I feel like, as far as people working remotely, are the VPNs, getting something set up for that. And then a lot of our clients, too, are using remote access software so that they can take either, a company-provided laptop or even their home computer, and they remote into their company equipment, because their company equipment, the company workstation or whatever it may be, already has all the software. It's already on the company network. It's already configured for their day-to-day, workflow. So a lot of times it's a lot easier, instead of setting something up that will work remotely in the same sense, it's a lot easier just to remote access into the system that's on the company network in the company building, and use that instead. You just kind of have like a single pane of glass or portal into that machine, and you just use it that way. So I think that's the big thing, and that was a lot of the when we went work from home, back in March. It feels like so long yet so short ago, but that was the big rush for a lot of people was, how do we do this? Like, we need to be working from home yesterday. And that was like number one on the feature list was remote access.
Awesome. Keith, what do you have to add to that? Thoughts on the long haul as we're heading into, more months of working at home?
Yeah. So kind of from the organization's perspective, I think organizations are really thinking about those laptops, like Brent was saying, the ones where they had desktops, so they have, all these employees working from home from personal devices, remoting into their work desktop. It was a lot clunkier, definitely, than just being able to pick up a laptop and take it home. So I'd say consider those laptops, even if it's just going to sit plugged in at the desk 90% of the time. We hope once this is all over, it just gives you that flexibility with, we've almost forgotten about the tornadoes that came right before the pandemic, but we had some clients affected by that too, where they were displaced. So whatever that next natural disaster is, you'll be ready for that to pick up and move your setup from anywhere. A little bit more expensive, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. And then I know we've talked about a lot of things today that add up. It's a lot of money for an individual to buy a headset or a webcam or anything. So hopefully organizations are thinking about a work from home budget for their employees, because it really goes a long way to be able to get that employee an extra monitor or that headset or webcam or whatever. So that's what we did for our employees. We set that work from home budget up, let everyone make whatever purchases they needed for their personal setups. And I think it's really helped get us a lot more productive. If you have an employee sitting hunched over a laptop screen, typing on a laptop keyboard, it's well worth spending a couple $100 to say, let me get you a monitor and a keyboard and everything, and try to find a place to set that up, and they're going to be working twice as fast.
Yeah. James, Sunny, either of you have anything to add to that?
I'll just build on what Keith said is when you do the work from home budget, because it's going to be longer than we think, it's not a short-term thing. I mean, if it's for 2 weeks, I could see how it's hard to justify a work from home budget, but the fact is it's probably going to be longer. And even when it gets back to normal, this might have opened up some opportunities where you're going to allow employees to work from home more often. So it could go, it's an investment that's going to last for a while. So it's not just a short-term investment. It is an investment for the long term. And like Keith said, if they're more efficient and they're more comfortable working from home, they're going to be more effective. And it makes sense. We as a company are not going to be a work from home company when this is over. We see that we are better as an organization when we're around each other, but I do think this has opened up the door where we will have some work from home initiatives, where we will allow people to work from home certain days of the week and work a system out. So we think that investment for us is a long-term investment.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. James, anything to add?
We've talked about a lot of technologies. I'll just add a couple of non-technology things. I think, as we're inconvenienced and displaced to some degree from our normal routines, and we're living in this different environment, there are some positive things you can do. I think most of the people in our team are taking advantage of spending more time outdoors and getting more exercise. And it's easier. You're maybe getting an hour and a half back in your day every day where you used to be commuting, and it's important to use that time wisely. I know for me, I've my entire adult life been a very communal coffee drinker, and now that I'm making my own coffee every day, this has been an opportunity to get really serious about coffee making. And so for the first time ever, I got my whole coffee grinder and my pour over set up and all that stuff, and it seems stupid, but it's just a little treat every morning that makes this whole thing different and as pleasurable as it can be.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much. I feel like this was all really helpful. You all had some great and different things to share. Attendees, I hope that you found some useful information, some applicable information that you can take and apply to your day-to-day and make that easier on yourselves right now. Time to do our raffle. I'm excited about this. This iPad mini has been sitting in my office all week. I haven't opened it yet, but ready to give that away. So if you registered with us, I have your name right in here. So let's see. I won't look either. That's something that you're supposed to do. And you do have to be present to win. Okay.
Are we eligible to win?
You guys are not eligible to win. I apologize. Okay, let's see who we have. Carl. I only wrote down first names. Hopefully, we only have first.
Well, that's me. My name's Carl.
You don't go by that name. It doesn't count. Okay, so Carl. So if you are on here, I'll be able to check. Let's see. It looks like you are. Awesome. So Carl Cooley, we will be reaching out to you at the end of the webinar. Congrats on winning that iPad mini. We will get that shipped off to you. So excited to send that your way. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be continuing to do these webinars. Feel free to reach out with any feedback that you have, any topics you'd like to see us cover in the future. We are open to any ideas and anything that you send coming our way. So thank you all so much for participating, taking time out of your Thursday morning, and we hope you have a great rest of the week. All right, bye everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.